What's up everybody, and welcome back. I'm not wasting any time. We just have to get into this manga because it is amazing. Like and subscribe and stick around till the end for a spoiler, cause today I'm recommending I got a new skill every time I was exiled, and after 100 different worlds I was unmatched. This is being made by Hinora Takumi and Tsukasa Jinmori. It's 21 chapters and it's an adventure, comedy, fantasy, romance, seinen. And when I said this manga is amazing, I meant it. So far, it is hands down one of my favorite adventure fantasy stories I've ever read. And just FYI, before we really get into this, I have to tell you about the first 6 chapters of this manga to properly explain what it's about and the motivations of the main character, Ed. That alone should tell you how good this is. That it takes 6 chapters, not to get into the meat of this, but to get into the beginning of this. So Ed was a mercenary in his own fantasy world when one day he was teleported to an all-white world. He didn't die to get there, so this isn't one of those kind of traditional isekais, but for some reason, we don't know, God teleported him to this room and gave him one mission in a book that said he had to travel to different worlds, join the hero party, remain in the hero party for at least 6 months, and then get kicked out of the hero's party. So this is where the manga starts, with Ed being kicked out of the 100th hero's party he was in, and each time he's kicked out, Ed is transported back to the white world where he is reset to the physical state and age he was when he was transported to the white world the first time. But he also gains an exiled ability each time he goes back, and these abilities are always something incredible. So after this 100th exile, Ed is essentially unbeatable and receives his 100th exiled ability, which is the ability that sets the whole story in motion. Because this time, when Ed gets back to the room, he doesn't only get an exiled ability, but a key and another book with new instructions on how to use it. The instructions say that the key he received will allow him to open the door that will get him back to World 0, which is the world Ed came from, but to use it, he first has to go back to any of the 100 worlds he went to, and from there, use the key to go back to his own world. So after the 100 years it's taken Ed to get the key to go home, he decides to go back to the first new world he went to when this started. And in that span of 100 years it's taken him, only 10 years have passed in the first world. So he decides to see how the world is after that time and the demon lord being defeated. So when Ed gets back to the first world, he's attacked by a monster and discovers the first town he went to is destroyed, because after he left, the hero shortly after disappeared. Ed, being curious and scared, tries to locate the hero and the other party members, only to discover that the only one of them that survived is Tia. So of course, Ed uses his exiled skills to locate Tia and rushes to where she is, discovering her hiding in a forest, living alone. And upon their reunion, Tia is overwhelmed with joy that unfortunately isn't long-lived, as she explains how the party got wiped and how she survived, only for the situation to get worse as a lesser dragon shows up that Ed was going to kill to show Tia how strong he was, only for Tia to pull him out of the way and kill the dragon, not knowing how strong Ed is, which uncovers the secret Tia was hiding, which is during the last battle of the hero's party, she used life magic to try and survive, which after using has been killing her. And with this last use of magic means she sealed her fate and she's going to die soon. Knowing this, she asks Ed to take her to the demon realm so she can die where their friends died. Ed, knowing that there's nothing he can do, takes Tia, and the two spend her final moments together with her head on Ed's shoulder before she passes. And this is when Ed decides to use his one-time use 100 100th exiled skill, Wish, and he wishes to reverse time back to the first moment he arrived in the white world with all of his memories and exiled skills so that he can go back through each and every world and save his friends in each hero's party from the same fate the first world suffered. And this story is amazing. I mean, it is incredible. I know that was a lot, but I had to tell you all of that because the story really starts with Ed returning to the first world for the third time to save it. Now, that doesn't mean he acts as the hero because the conditions for returning from the worlds are still the same: to join the hero's party, be in it for 6 months, and get exiled from it. That hasn't changed, but his approach and his motivation in each world is totally different now. Overall, Ed still wants to go home, back to his world, but this time around, he has the abilities to make sure each of the 100 worlds are saved, because when Ed first arrived to the first world, he had only one exiled power, which is basically he'll always meet the hero. So the first time he was in at least the first world, he didn't have the ability to actually help the party. He may have been a low-level mercenary in his world, but that doesn't mean he was at any level where he could contribute to the hero's party, I'm guessing in at least the first few worlds, in any meaningful way, other than being the baggage carrier. But now he has all the abilities he needs to make sure they all survive, and he can finally return home after knowing that each of the 100 worlds is safe. And so far, just in the rerun of the first world, I can tell you that this story has everything. Aside from the beautiful art that has unexpected pops of color that make it look incredible, it has humor, it has amazing action and abilities, and it has heart and can easily make you cry at points. I'm not going to spoil anything about the World 1 rerun, but it also sets up one of the most important parts of the story moving forward that I desperately want to spoil, and will at the end of this. But each world seems like it's gonna be its own arc, the first one lasting from chapter 7 through 21, at least the rerun of that world. If you want to consider the first 1 through 21 the first arc, I think you can, but 1 through 6 really sets up the story. So I would consider 7 through 21 being the first arc, being the rerun of the first world. Chapter 22 will be the first chapter of World 2, and I don't remember the last time I've been this excited for a chapter release. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the best manga I'm reading. Probably top 3, if not my number 1 out of the 400 plus I'm currently reading. That's how excited I am about this manga, because this manga, it's fun, it's heartbreaking and heartwarming, it's wholesome and adorable, it's got incredible characters that you fall in love with, and the first arc was so good that if it was a standalone anime that ended with chapter 21, I would be beyond satisfied and disappointed for wanting more. And the most unfortunate part about this review is I don't know how much I can tell you about the characters, seeing as Ed is going to be constantly traveling between worlds and introducing new characters, but the characters that were introduced in the first world, who may or may not be seen again, were fantastic. But Ed as the MC is such a great character. He's a little silly, he's not an idiot, and he is obviously incredibly determined, experienced, and smart, being as he's been alive for over 100 years, and experienced what I'm assuming is basically everything that you could experience in that time. As far as combat and adventuring go, at least, he is a fantastic and reliable character that may have been reluctant to do what God had spirited him away to do, but you can tell why Ed was chosen by his character. I'll tell you, my only fear with this manga is getting a crappy release schedule, because the last time I was this excited about a fantasy manga was Sonomono, and those releases became so bad. It's like once every 3 months, if that. It's horrible. That's my only worry with this. Not because it has a poor release schedule. Its schedule looks pretty consistent. It's just sometimes when I recommend something, it seems to stop being updated. And if that happened with this, I would be so depressed. I'd still read it and get hyped anytime a new chapter releases, but I don't want that to happen. So now for those who have stayed and watched this long, here's the spoiler that makes this story even more incredible. So as soon as Ed gets back to the white world, after he helps save World 1, 10 years basically instantly go by. From the time he gets back to the time he finishes reading a book on the heroic tales of Alexis, the hero of the World 1. And in that time, Tia never stopped looking for Ed. Since none of them know, upon being exiled, he disappears from the world after 10 minutes. But in that time, Tia discovers a way to create teleportation magic and uses the magic she gathered from the demon world to teleport to the white world to be reunited with Ed. And yes, it works. And yes, she loves him. And yes, I'm sure Ed loves Tia. And yes, I love her too. And yes, from there, the two of them, Ed and Tia, are going to go to the worlds together and save them. And oh my god, it is so incredible and heartwarming. I can't even explain. You just have to experience it. But I had to tell somebody, and if you've watched this far, you earned the spoiler and deserve to know that because it is one of, if not the best mini arcs of this story so far. Obviously, I don't expect it to be something that happens again, but I am hoping that after all 100 worlds are saved by them, they obviously get married and go back to Ed's homeworld that we know nothing about. But I hope that he receives the same key, but this time he can use it whenever and as many times as he wants to travel between the different worlds, because I desperately need a reunion of the original heroes group, but this time with Tia and Ed being an official couple. I could die happy after that. If this looks amazing to you, which it should, please check it out. I'm honestly going to reread it already because of how much I love it. I don't know if you'll love it as much as me, but I think you will. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with someone you think might enjoy it. If you want more recommendations, the playlist is linked in the description box along with the merch. Other than that, I will see all of you in the next one.